What's up, guys? Edin from Evidence Nutrition here, and I just wanted to let you know I finally found the setting where I thought I had it, all right? I kept messing it up, but I promise you this will be the last one that I do that's just audio. So this will be audio-only podcast. I will make sure that I fix this for the next one. But yeah, so sorry that this one is audio only. I finally found the setting. I'm an idiot, okay? And I'm learning just like anyone else is. Thank you for your patience, but here is the Q&A video that I just recorded 5 minutes ago, answering your questions about, sport nutrition and timing of nutrition and exercise, depression and nutrition, those types of things. Please enjoy. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Informal Education with me, Edin Sehovic from Evidence Nutrition. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and welcome back to another Q&A style video. We're really just trying to figure out, find our bearings here with this podcast, just in case anyone thought that I knew exactly what I was doing. No, I didn't come out of the womb knowing what I was doing, so I wanted to practice, get some reps in. So the easiest way that I knew how, that I could make sure it was guaranteed to be content that you wanted to see, and it was content that you could actually use and apply to your life, was by starting off with some Q&As and getting myself the reps. A lot of you guys asked, and first of all, I didn't share the first episode anywhere, but a lot of you guys did ask, and by the way, if you haven't seen the first episode, go check it out. The first episode was all about caffeine. So go check that out if you're curious about caffeine, coffee, pre-workout, all that. We did a little bit of Q&A style. Unfortunately, I already had a technical difficulty on the first one, and it was like, why did I even bother setting up a camera? Because for some reason I didn't capture any of the camera. So again, I'm learning and doing my damn best. And so there's going to be a lot of mistakes. So thank you guys for bearing with me through that. And if it's absolutely terrible, tell me things that I can improve, because I really, really, really want to give you guys the best quality product that you could possibly get. And it's free. I want to make sure that I get you the best quality product for free. That's the whole point of Evidence Nutrition and starting this podcast, Informal Education, is because I want it to be an informal education. I want to use my evidence-based background and help get you guys a little bit of education on perhaps the topics that confuse you around nutrition and fitness, and areas where I have the expertise. And if I don't, hopefully in the future, we can get some guests on here and get them answering those questions. So all that said, a lot of you were concerned about, the longevity of the podcast. I'd like to just get more comfortable in a long form speaking. I'm very used to, unfortunately, saying and those types of things. And I find that with a camera, you just need to practice it and get used to it. So the one thing I want to do is get used to the camera being there and don't feel like, it's a short form video and feel like I have to rush. And that hopefully will translate to better quality content all around. It's something that I personally have reflected on and feel like I need to improve in that regard. Again, if you think there's many other things I need to improve upon, I'm more than happy to do that as well, but I'll only know if you leave me a comment or a review or something like that. So by all means, leave a comment on the YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you are listening to this on Spotify, make sure you guys leave a review. If you want to rate me 5 stars, that's great, but just leave what you think is an honest review. I won't get offended either way. It's all about making a good quality product. So if that can help you guys, but promise, that if you make a 1-star review and I improve upon the thing that I was getting wrong, that you'll fix your review later when it becomes 5 stars. So we got some questions, and full disclosure, I had a lot of questions this week, which also so grateful. I remember the days when I would throw up a Q&A and I would have to create my own questions sometimes. That didn't happen often, but it happened, in the past where you're like, you hear like the cricket sounds and you're like, is anyone going to ask a question? It's definitely been a few years since that's happened. Everyone's a little bit more engaged. I'm glad. That just shows me that, I'm giving them either a safe space to ask a question, or people are just more curious. And there's also just more of you. So thank you guys for being here. One thing I want to make note of is, remember that I have ADHD. So if I jump from one topic to another and back to back kind of thing, forgive me. I'm trying to stay dialed in, which is why I'll look over here at my notes on the screen. I want to make sure that I don't stray too far off topic, because I tend to do that. That's just me being ADHD. I'm very sorry about that. It's something that I'm really working on, and hopefully I can get the practice in here with you. There were a lot of repeat questions this week, so it really only boiled down to like 7 or 8 real questions, well, I mean, tons of questions, but either they were like sexualizing me, which like shout out to you guys shooting your shot, I guess. Fellas, calm down. And two, there's just a lot of repeat, right? So by the time, once you address the repeat, there wasn't really that many questions to answer. So without further ado, let's get into it. And hopefully it's concise and clear, and we're able to give you guys the information that you need. So the first question is the easiest changes to make in nutrition for the 9-to-5er. I just want to bear in mind here that the prompt that I put on Instagram was for like sport nutrition questions. So I actually got some sport nutrition, some not. Clearly, people don't give a fuck what the prompt is. They're just like, I have a question and I need it answered yesterday. For a 9-to-5er, you know, you're working 9 to 5, but that means you're usually probably leaving for work at like 8, maybe even earlier, depending on how far you have to commute. And then, you know, coming back at 6, you got to find time to work out. So it's either before that 8 o'clock time slot in the morning or afterwards. And then you kind of somehow need to find a place to make dinner. Maybe you have kids, yada, yada, yada. So I was trying to, you know, create a person. You know, my person's name is Dave here. So Dave has a job, commutes an hour, or rather leaves an hour before work. So commutes a little less than an hour and tries to work out 3 to 4 times a week, has some kids, has some responsibilities around that. So what can Dave do? And forgive me if your name is Dave and you're watching this, but I like to do this, right? To really get into the shoes of the person. So what can Dave do to improve his life? Obviously, it depends on where Dave's at currently. And if you are not like Dave and maybe you have like 4 kids and you commute 3 hours to work and you work 2 jobs, well, then obviously your situation is going to be different. And take from this what you will, but I've tried to create some very simple things that you can do to improve your health and nutrition. First and foremost, if you are drinking sugary-filled drinks, limit that. I'm not saying get rid of it completely, but if you like soda from time to time, drink the 0-calorie version. Now, if you may listen to that and go, oh my God, but Edin, it just doesn't taste the same. I know it doesn't taste the exact same. Some of them taste really damn close. But the thing is, if this tastes 80% of the way there and you can drink 30 of them before you're at 1/10 of the calories of drinking just one of the calorie-filled ones, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? What are we talking about? It's all about making choices. And on top of that, this will provide you significantly more caloric room to get other foods in and enjoy other foods. So I would say that's one thing is probably just don't drink your calories if you don't need to, but it's not like a strict rule. Just use it as a guide. By just removing that one sugary drink per day, that's a 200-calorie saving per day. Over the course of a week, that's 1,400 calories. Ballpark, right? Do you know what you can do with 1,400 calories? Even if you do nothing with that, in 2 weeks, from just eliminating that one a day that you were drinking, in 2 weeks, that's a pound of fat gone. So if you're someone who needs to lose fat and you consume those a lot, that's some food for thought. And mind you, I'm not telling you to just eliminate the drink and replace it with nothing. I'm giving you a replacement. Does it do the same job? No. But do you have to eliminate it every day? Maybe not. Like maybe 1 out of the 7 days you consume the regular sugary drink if you need to, if you really feel like that's like a make or break for you. But at the end of the day, it's all about trade-offs, right? If you want to lean in on that being your like, I refuse to give up sugary drinks, okay, that's a trade-off. You'll have to give up elsewhere. Of course, if you don't need to lose weight, if you need to gain weight, throw some sugary drinks in there. But overall, I would say for healthcare, when we talk about public health, removing sugary drinks across the board is a good health move because we want to reduce the amount of added sugars we consume in our diet anyways. Sugary drinks like sodas are almost entirely added sugar. The other thing that I want to say for folks is, Dave in this case, is increase fruit and vegetable intake. It is demonstrably clear that if you consume more fruits and vegetables, you will live a better life of higher quality, a healthier life, longer life potentially, with less potential for health risks. And there is a dose-response relationship with the more fruits and vegetables you consume, the lower your risk of all-cause mortality becomes. If you are like Dave, who is not consistently hitting his fruit and vegetable intake, not only that, but Dave's not even getting one dose, or rather 1 serving of fruits and vegetables in per day, I would say, first of all, aim for 1 or 2. Try to increase your daily servings every single day by 1 or 2 servings of fruits and vegetables. But on average, try to aim for 5 fruits and vegetables servings per day. Now, if that sounds scary, well, off screen, I just ate one of these while I was prepping. That right there, this 1 can is 2 servings of fruits. Actually, 3 servings of fruits. So I would need, 2 more. 1 apple, there you go, right? And then add some veggies in with your meal, add some blueberries into your oats, whatever it is. Just by doing that, you are increasing your fiber intake, reducing your risk of certain chronic illnesses, but also colon cancer, certain other cancers, diabetes, heart disease, etc. Increasing fruits and vegetable intake is an absolute must. It's a no-brainer. Across the board, whether you want to bulk, cut, doesn't matter. A practical application of this would be to take a banana with you to work or cut up some fruit so that you can have with you when you're at work so that it's convenient for you. For example, if you maybe don't work in a cubicle and maybe your hands are dirty, cut up some fruit, leave it in a Tupperware. And by the way, just a Tupperware like this size can fit 2 servings, maybe even 3 of most fruits. And just leave a toothpick in your bag or a fork or something like that. So if you're out in the field somewhere, if you're at a job site, and even if you're not, you can just take the fork, stab it in, and eat it. No peeling needed, no fussing about. Reduce the friction, make it as easy as possible to get more servings of fruits and vegetables in, and you will not regret it. The next thing that I would say to your average 9-to-5er, or Dave in this case, is to prioritize protein. The goal should be consuming 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of your body weight. Now, that's roughly 0.7 grams to 1 gram per pound of your body weight. Now, that may sound like a lot, and depending on your adiposity or your level of body fat percentage, that may not be relatable for you. You may be like, what? I weigh like 350 pounds. There's no way I can consume that much protein. Start where you can. If you weigh 350 pounds and eating that much protein intimidates you, start lower, but start higher than where you were yesterday. So one thing that you can do to figure that out is track your protein intake for a day. See where you're at, naturally, without any changes, without anybody judging you. Just track it. Download the Chronometer app and track. Or if you really want, you can download the MacroFactor app using code EVIDENCE. Both of those will support my page. Some ways to practically apply this to your life is switching your proteins to lean protein sources so that you can make leaner meals with more protein using things like chicken, turkey, cottage cheese, seitan, tempeh, tofu, lean ground beef, Greek yogurt. Did I say cottage cheese? Anyways, adding those as protein sources to your meals are fantastic. We can kill 2 birds with 1 stone if we give ourselves a cup of yogurt or half a cup of yogurt and adding whatever fruit we have in the fridge or whatever is in season at the time. Let's say it's blueberries, adding, a serving or 2 of blueberries to some yogurt. Now we've got a snack that's high in protein, and we got more fruits and veggies in. Happy gut and happy muscles because they have more protein to build more muscle, which helps us in maintaining a leaner body mass in general. The next thing that I would say is to reduce the amount of ultra-processed food that you consume. Nice and simple. The more processed it is, let's say, sliced fruit, that is processed technically, this is processed technically because it's put in a can, but that's okay, right? Try to reduce the amount of ready-made meals you're eating, the amount of fast food you're consuming, and those kind of things. But the realistic, practical application of that is exactly like what I was talking about earlier with having more fruit available to you, is just take control and cook more or prepare more ahead. There's always that saying of fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And I believe that is so true with nutrition. If you prepare just 1 to 10% of the way there, you will be so much more successful than you believe. You don't need to be 100% prepared all the time. You don't have to have everything meal prepped all the time. I never do. And I've been able to maintain a pretty lean life for, 10, 12 years. I just make sure that I'm prepared in certain ways that, for example, I have a walking pad under here. So if I really can't get any exercise in for the day, like today where I'm filming a lot of content for you guys and I'm working and all of these different things and I have appointments, cool, can't make it to the gym. At bare minimum, I have my walking pad under my desk and it can take 10 minutes a few times throughout the day and just walk. And in doing so, my current steps, this is an accountability check for me, and we're going to check right now. My current steps are at 6,425. Now, that's not that high, and I haven't been super consistent, but as a result, I've been able to maintain over 10,000 steps per day, so almost 11,000 steps a day. And that's including today's number. So if I can get today above 10,000, which I will, I'm literally 20 minutes of walking away from getting myself above 10,000 steps again. It's that easy. Which leads me into my next thing, is to aim for about 150 minutes per week of activity, specifically like moderate activity, weight training, high intensity cardio, or going for like a run, for example, along with hit a steps goal, anything above 7,000 to 8,000 per day. Again, as I just showed you there, you don't have to hit that target every day, but on average, you should be able to hit that target. And if you're Dave, and are looking for a practical way to increase the amount of activity you have in a day, park further at the grocery store, park further at work. Take the stairs just one way to work. Maybe even just start with taking them downstairs instead of waiting for the elevator. Take them when you're coming home. Walk around when you're on phone calls. Take a little walk when you're brushing your teeth. I say this one all the time to clients, and it blows their mind every time that they try this out. Just walk while brushing your teeth. You are brushing your teeth for 2 minutes. That will do one of two things. It will likely increase the amount of time you spend walking, hopefully, and it will also make you realize that you might not have always been brushing your teeth for 2 whole minutes. So it might even increase the amount of time you spend brushing your teeth. So improved oral health and improved physical health at the same time. And all of this should help you to fix the final thing that I'm about to talk about is try to improve the consistency of your sleep. We know that it's important to get between 6 to 8 hours of sleep, but one of the most important things for your body and your circadian rhythm is to have a fairly regular time sleep-wake cycle. Oh my gosh, sorry, I'm fumbling over my words there. But have a regular sleep-wake cycle. So if you are normally waking up for work at 6 a.m., try to keep that routine as close as possible throughout the weekend. Obviously, you're going to try to, get a little bit of extra sleep in time. That's fine. And maybe you go out one day or whatever, and you need to sleep a little longer. That's great. Do that. But generally speaking, over the whole of the year, on average, try to reduce the amount of time you spend changing your routine for sleep. And thus, you'll have a better chance of having better recovery, more sleep patterns. It will improve and reduce your risk of hypertension, chronic diseases like heart disease, depression, diabetes, obesity, and so much more, which you'll see is kind of a pattern for a lot of these suggestions. But anyways, hope that was helpful. That took at least 15 minutes to answer that question, but I really love to dive into these. So if you guys have any questions about the recommendations that I made for Dave, or in this case, you, make sure to let me know. Either send this to me on socials and we can dive deeper into it on the next episode, or comment it down below on the YouTube video. The next question was supplementing electrolytes as a normal person that exercises moderately versus as an athlete. First of all, this goes without saying, every one of these answers is going to start with depends, but we're going to forego that for the future answers. So just pretend that I'm starting everything with it depends. So if you are David and you are eating the standard American diet, otherwise known as SAD, what you'll need to do is understand how much you're sweating. Well, what is your sweat rate? Now, how much are you sweating per hour? How much are you exercising? Therefore, you can figure out, do you sweat a lot? How much sodium do you lose? Do you typically see that you have white lines on your clothes when you go to wash them? Those kind of things are important to keep track of. And if you guys want me to go in further detail about that and make it its own episode later down the road, we can talk about sweat rates, electrolytes, and recommendations for exercise. I'd love to, deep dive on that if you guys want. Maybe even get another sport dietitian on here for that. That'd be super cool. But as for the standard American, or in this case, Dave, he does not need an electrolyte. Now, I know every podcast ever is, giving an Element ad or, Gorilla Mind, the supplement company that sponsors me, code evidence. Shout out if you want to support me at Gorilla Mind. The vast majority of people don't need an electrolyte, mainly because the electrolytes that you lose the most, namely sodium and potassium, through exercise, you're likely getting an adequate amount through your diet. In fact, the average American consumes something like 3,600 milligrams of sodium or 3.6 grams of sodium per day. And the recommendation is 2,000 milligrams of sodium per day. So through your diet, you're getting more than enough. Now, that said, if you are someone who's significantly more active and or is a big sodium, somebody who loses a lot of sodium in their sweat, so their concentration of sodium is high in their sweat, then we can talk about whether or not you need an electrolyte. But I just want to remind you guys that electrolytes, Gatorade, all of those things, in general, who are they designed for? Athletes. Who consumes a majority of them? Not athletes. So, I would love to create an S tier. Maybe I should do that, the A, S tier of a bunch of products. I would love to know which ones you think are, rated, how you would rate them, and what are your favorite products as well. I know I'm giving you a lot to do here. Pick one. You don't have to do all of them. But yeah, I have so many fun ideas for videos. This is how I create my videos, by the way. Just having a conversation, except now I'm having a conversation with myself. Okay, I got it. I got to get off this. But yeah, most people don't need it versus an athlete probably would need it. And it really depends largely on your sweat rate and the concentration of your sodium combined with your sweat rate, and then combined with how are you refueling in your diet. So when you have all of those three pieces of information, you can figure out whether or not it's even effective. Even for some athletes, it isn't effective for electrolyte supplementation. Largely, I would say endurance athletes are like the biggest target audience or target demographic, people that are exercising for a long period of time and therefore losing a large amount of sweat. And, or I should say, somebody who's doing it in like a humid environment or a hot environment. That's where electrolytes are quite helpful. But for the average person, no need. Like if you're just going to the gym, an air-conditioned gym, and working out for an hour 3 times a week, like Dave is, you don't need that. And candidly, I don't use them that often. Like I use electrolytes. The reason why I don't use them that often is because I don't need to raise my blood pressure by consuming too much sodium. And that is very much a possibility. I don't want to scare people, but it's not like nothing could hurt. You'll just pee it out. Well, by consuming too much sodium, you could raise your blood pressure. And if you're already consuming enough and or too much sodium, if you have a lot of ultra processed foods, most foods when you go out are filled with sodium, or packaged foods have a lot of sodium and a lot of fat as well, but we're talking about sodium here. So when you consume a lot of ultra processed foods, packaged foods, fast foods, and or, salt your food, season your food really well, you're going to be consuming more than enough sodium likely. And if that's the case, and you also add, a very sodium rich electrolyte, which most of them have like 2 grams of sodium in it, or at least 1 gram of sodium in it, not 2. They'll have like 1 gram of sodium in it, something like an element. Well, then you're now risking massively increasing the amount of sodium you're consuming in your diet. So I would really leave the supplemented electrolytes to the athletes. And if you have to ask yourself, am I an athlete? You're probably not an athlete. Should I weigh myself every day or every week? Pretty simple. Whatever you're more comfortable with. Now, some people feel very uncomfortable and trapped by the number on the scale. If that's you, just step away from it for a little bit. You need to be in the right mental state to weigh yourself. I think you need to be able to understand that it's just a number, it's just a data point. And when you can understand that, I would suggest that you do it every day. Obviously, you're going to miss some days and that's okay, but just think of it as the more data points you have, the better averages you're going to get. So in general, one weight measurement to another weight measurement, I would compare that to being like, like if you see one weight measurement today is one, for me, I'll use my weights, for example. Today I weighed 228. A few days ago I weighed 230 or 232, sorry. Now, in those few days, I've also weighed myself every other day in between. But if I only weighed myself today and 4 days ago, 5 days ago, if I only weighed myself on those 2 days, it would look like, damn, I lost a lot of weight. But in between, what actually happened is I went up a little bit, then I went back down a little bit, and then now I'm technically up from yesterday. So I'm up at 228, I believe. And yesterday I was at like 226. So if you don't have all of the data points in between, or rather the more data points in between you have, the more information you have. And if you can see it that way as just a number is a number, then that's great. Because the weight scale ultimately only can tell you one thing. It doesn't tell you the composition of the weight or anything. It just tells you how much mass you weigh. So you could have to poo, you could be really hydrated when you weigh yourself and you're heavy, and then when you weigh yourself and you're really light, you are dehydrated, right? So there's many different factors that play a role here, along with, if you're hungry, food volume, hydration rate, of course, a whole bunch of other stuff. Obviously fat loss, if you experience fat loss, that'll change things a little bit, that kind of thing. Ideally, the more you can weigh, the better, because then you can actually watch trends in data instead of just making decisions based on singular data points. Just like you wouldn't change your opinion based on one study. Well, I guess you might, but I totally won't. Nor will anyone respected in the world of, evidence-based nutrition. You don't want to change your mind based on one piece of evidence, and you won't want to change your mind based on one piece of evidence on the scale either. So for example, I started my mini cut before my vacation, and the next day I was up in weight. So now if I went the next day and was like, oh man, I went up after the first day I started, that means something's going wrong. And if I immediately switch up on myself, what's going to happen there, right? So that's going to be a spiral, a slippery slope. So you got to just stick with the plan, watch trends in data. And if you have the option, weigh yourself every day and then look at the averages of every day, the averages of every week. hopefully weigh yourself at the same time, on the same scale in a similar environment after you've urinated and defecated if you've got that option, but if not, at minimum after you've urinated, so that you can keep the variables as limited as possible. What video editing software do you use? I use Final Cut Pro. So I've been using that for years. I learned on that. I had a laptop actually back in the day that just couldn't, it was spontaneously combusting every time I tried to use Adobe Premiere. And I've just been using Final Cut. And I get asked this all the time, but I thought, you know what, I'll include it in this. The last one, I wanted to keep it on caffeine, and the same 3 people ask me this question, so I figured they really want to know. I use Final Cut Pro, and I also will use CapCut for the captions. But I'll happily get rid of CapCut the moment there's automated captions. I actually used Final Cut Pro for a really long time to do the captions, but it was so manual and it took so long. So I was like, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore. So it saves me a lot of time. It saves me about 30 minutes per video. The next question is, how long does it take you to edit your videos? So my short form videos take in total anywhere between 3 to 5 hours. On average, usually 3 to 4. The longer ones with a lot more citations. The more citations you see, the longer it takes. So it could take, I think the longest one that I've ever done for a short form, it's 10 hours. YouTube videos take way longer. And if you know any YouTube video editors that want to help me out, I would love that, because I want to move into the long form space. I really want to make more long form content. But I've been creating every day on short form media and trying to fit as much value in each video, between humor, evidence-based actual facts, and, trying to make it applicable to our boy Dave, or whoever this is watching this, whoever you are. What's the threshold for identifying as needing sports nutrition versus regular nutrition? Are you competitive in your sport? Do you partake in a sport that is competitive over 3 times a week? I would say that's a pretty good indication. Obviously, that's not a standard. That's just a guideline. Obviously, there's aspects of sport nutrition that you can apply to a regular nutrition person's lifestyle. For example, the timing of sport nutrition. So you're not going to go eat a steak and then go run a mile because you're going to feel terrible. And that aspect of sport nutrition, which is timing of your nutrition, can be applied to regular nutrition. But for the most part, I don't think you'd like to get too lost in the weeds unless you're really, competitive in your sport. I wouldn't lose too much sleep over it. My 15-year-old son does competitive swimming. What kind of nutrients does he need? The same kind of nutrients you need, just in far larger quantities. Part 2, he trains 9 to 12 hours a week and is always hungry. More food. Yeah, athletes are very, especially swimming, it'll be very carb intensive. So focus on getting high carb, high protein, making sure that he's always got a protein-rich snack with him at all times. 9 to 12 hours is no joke, especially swimming. It's very calorie intensive. And as we mentioned earlier, the reverse of me trying to reduce the amount of calories, you should try to increase it using liquids. Smoothies is a great way to do that. That kind of thing. Can you eat certain foods to help depression? Obviously, as well as professional therapy. Yeah, nothing can happen without professional therapy and medications when needed. But there are totally different ways in which we can help to improve or reduce symptoms of depression. And funny enough, the diet does matter. And some of these recommendations will be very similar to the 9 to 5er recommendations, because that's just the overlap. There are certain supplements that might be beneficial for people with depression, but again, you'd want to talk to your healthcare provider before starting any protocol. Don't just use this as hey, Edin from Evidence Nutrition said to take omega-3s. I got to start taking those. So, for example, omega-3s, vitamin D, if you're deficient in it, that's very common, but it might not be the case with you. But again, if you are deficient in vitamin D, to absolutely supplement yourself with vitamin D, or try to get better intake of vitamin D through your diet. As far as supplementation is concerned, there is increasing literature on creatine consumption. I mean, if you don't consume creatine already, you should definitely make sure you're getting, at least 5 grams per day. That should cover, most of the benefits for most people. But we are starting to see more emerging literature on the cognitive benefits of creatine and the, antidepressive, or the improvements in depressive-like symptoms using creatine as a supplementation. So, promising. I wouldn't say do it just for that reason, but if you take 5 grams of creatine per day, or if you haven't started taking it for its sport benefit, definitely consider taking it for its cognitive benefits. And again, just the 5 grams a day until we know more, but 5 grams a day should be good. And as for any like specific recommendations for dietary changes, obviously the Mediterranean diet has a solid amount of backing, but I don't think the Mediterranean diet specifically is going to be what's, a game changer for most people. The things that we should take from that, those RCTs and that literature is really just diets higher in fruits and vegetables, diets higher in fish, which usually have more omega-3s, EPA dominant omega-3s. Yeah, more fruits and vegetables and are leaner in general. But along with that, pair, being more consistent with exercise. We do know that improvements in exercise or those lifestyle improvements can also help reduce the symptoms of depression and improve, the performance of your various different medical therapies, whether medication or otherwise. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, man. And last question, I love you. No, I love you. I left that one in there. The rest of them were kind of like gross, but that one was very nice. So thank you so much. I think that's a good spot for us to end. Hope you guys enjoyed this YAP session. Things that you can take away from today, key takeaways. Make sure you're hitting your 30 plus grams of fiber per day. Try to aim for 1.6. Start there, 1.6 grams per kilogram of your body weight per day. And if you're sitting there going, but Edin, what's a kilogram? If you know your weight in pounds, divide that by 2.2. That will give you your weight in kilograms. Then take that weight in kilograms and multiply that by 1.6. Or if you're really lazy, take your scale, press the button that says units until it gives you the kilograms measurement. Stand on it. It will tell you your kilograms weight. From there, multiply that by 1.6 to figure out how many grams of protein you need to consume per day. Try your hand at tracking your intake, especially using something like the Chronometer app. Candidly, I have to report that they have supported this channel on Instagram in the past financially, but also they've done that because I reached out to them and I think is a fantastic app that you can use to help you maybe start tracking your food. That will give you a better idea of, are you hitting enough fiber in a day? Are you consuming enough water per day? Are you consuming enough protein in a day? And how many calories are you truly consuming day to day? Start there. You don't have to do it every day, but get a good idea of where you're at and then take it from there. Even if you just use the free version of the Chronometer app, they have a free barcode scanner, and this has turned into a free plug for Chronometer, and that's not what I intended to do. Anyways, make sure you dial in your nutrition. If you have any questions, leave them down in the YouTube video. Go all the way to YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube. I want to help you guys. I love you guys. I want you guys to live a long and healthy and happy life. So in order to do that, I think it's best that you go follow me on YouTube, follow me on all of your favorite social media platforms. I'm Evidence Nutrition across all platforms. Leave a rating on Spotify. I don't know what it does, but I'm sure it helps. And I will see you guys in the next one.